Setting up your meeting for custom streaming service, and we should be on. All right, so good morning, Ralph LeBlanc.
Good morning, Chris.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Mr. Ralph LeBlanc, who are you?
That's a good question. How about a former space engineer, NASA space engineer, and family man?
Is there any way we can get, do you have, I'm wondering how the sound is coming in. Do you have an exterior microphone, or is it just with your telephone there?
It's just with the telephone.
Okay. Is there a way that we can prop your phone up so you can relax your hands?
Sure. Let me see if we can do that.
For everybody watching, if you can hear the music in my background, this is 92.5 The River, Boston's independent radio, roots rock, reggae, and everything in between. I love this music. It's my soundtrack for life. Just about every song they play is amazing. And so this song is a new song, and it reminds me of the music, the romantic love music that came out in the 60s and 70s. But I think it was a new release. Yeah, so pretty cool. So Mr. Ralph, looks like you punched your mute and your screen, bottom left-hand corner.
I was just sitting it down to steady it and remove this.
So Ralph and I met each other through a little bit of online research that I was doing, and I was studying the subject of bypass oil filtration, and this took place when I was working in the West Texas, New Mexico oil field, the Permian Basin. And so my work allowed me to have some downtime. There was a lot of hurry up and wait, and we were working 7 days a week, 16-hour shifts, 18-hour shifts. 12 of those hours every day were basically just sitting around waiting for the next time that we had to fuel up some of the equipment. I worked for a fueling company, and so I was making some pretty good money. And with my downtime, I was investing in my own development, research and study, and I came across oil bypass filtration technology. A friend of mine actually introduced it to me, a friend of mine who's since passed, and he had mentioned it to me. So I was looking that up and came across Ralph LeBlanc with the Petrosavers, and reached out to him and began asking about if his stuff is the real deal. Like, does it do what it says it's supposed to do? Because what he claims and what you're about to find out on this podcast is nothing short of a miracle, in my opinion. And so it's kind of like the Christopher Columbus is going to find a new pathway to the Silk Road, and people tell him, you know, he's off his rocker. You're not going to go around the world. It's impossible. And so with Ralph LeBlanc's information here, with the professional business that he has, he conquers an area, a specific field of study that has to do with filtration slash purification slash maintaining your engine oil, combustible engine lubricants is clean and indefinitely, I think, is some of the terms that you might hear. But I'll let him dive into that and explain because there's he has a passion for this. This is his dedicated passion in life, and but he comes from a professional background. Ralph LeBlanc, if you want to share, tell us about your experience with helping put a man on the moon. What's that all about?
Well, Chris, my background is electrical engineering, and I had the great privilege and honor of being selected as an employee for Boeing, and Boeing had the contract to construct the Saturn V moon rocket program. And the Saturn V moon rocket was the booster that sent America to the moon. It consisted basically of 5 rockets, and each one of them had a thrust of 1.5 million pounds of thrust. It was the most powerful rocket that's ever been built on the planet. And it was a great honor to work with some of the most brilliant people, minds on the earth, to have be a part of that program that would send America to the moon and return them safely, because, you know, we were in competition with the Russians as to who was going to get there first. So it was a tremendous experience, you know, very challenging. It was really a good experience for me to work with these engineers.
So this is, you are a treasure trove with your background, and the Solomon's Treasure podcast. One of the things that I'm creating as far as the culture within these interviews has to do with bringing out the treasure that's hidden within us, the commonalities that we have as human beings. You know, these are the things that I want to expound upon and share, that really in society we have way more in common than we have in different. And at the end of the day, our desires are to help make the world a better place for ourselves and for our loved ones. And so that's what we're going to talk about as far as your experiences over life and some of the things that you've been able to take part of as a person who has utmost integrity, in my opinion, a level of honesty that is it's quite remarkable. And so you've also accomplished quite a few things as well. You've been a productive person with your life. And so what I would like to do is talk about some of the most amazing productive accomplishments that you've been part of for your own well-being and for your family, and of course for everybody else on the planet. It may be in a small way, but yet possibly not as much as we might think, because the future is still unfolding. So that's the excitement of bringing people together on this podcast and sharing stories. So let's dive in a little bit more. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes, and I want you to talk for I want you to talk for those 10 minutes and explain a little bit more about where you were born and what led you to work with being on part of the Saturn V program. And we're gonna grow from there. Okay. So 10 minutes, I'm actually gonna mute my screen, mute my audio, and you won't hear from me unless I come back, or I might unmute. Sometimes I will unmute and maybe ask a question as I'm listening, but I'm paying attention to you. So just share your story, where you're originally from, your name. If you want to share your birthday, that's fine. Hometown, where you grew up, maybe if you want to go into education, but just 10 minutes. What led you to the point where you were helping work on the Saturn V program with putting a man on the moon? Could you do that for me, Ralph?
Certainly, Chris, my pleasure.
Good. All right, I'm going to mute.
All right. Well, as Chris has said, my name is Ralph LeBlanc. I'm a resident of Louisiana all of my life. I was born in a little small country town called Irvinville, Louisiana. And my grandfather was a farmer. As a matter of fact, he was a sharecropper. And he raised 7 children on that farm. I had the pleasure, once my mom and my dad moved to a city known as Opelousas, Louisiana. And once they moved to Opelousas, they ended up, my father and grandfather ended up with a cab line called LeBlanc's Taxi. So I was born in that entrepreneur environment. We had LeBlanc's Taxi, and we had a restaurant there in Opelousas. And right across the street was my uncle's service station. And that's where the taxi cabs would be repaired. So I was born in that entrepreneurial environment. My mom's sister owned a grocery store. So I used to work in the grocery store. I used to work across the street with my uncle in the service station. And I guess that's where my interest came with the mechanics in terms of engines and engines repair. I remember when I started working at my uncle's service station during the summer, I thought that he was going to put me in the front office, but to his great wisdom, he actually started me on the wash rack where I was washing cars. And I did this for about 4 summers, and he just continued to move me throughout his facility, where I would wash cars. I learned how to change oil and tires. I learned how to take engines out. I learned how to drop transmissions. He also had a paint shop, so I worked in the paint shop. I worked in every aspect of that business. And, he was a man of real integrity. Back then in the 40s, 50s, men shook your hand, and that was their word was their bond. You didn't need agreements back then as we do today. It was also my spending time with my grandfather on the farm that I saw his level of work ethics and work integrity as well. So both my parents, my grandparents, my uncle across with the service station, my grandfather with the farm, they were all men of integrity and men of their word. As I went through high school, I became interested in space.
Quick question, Ralph. Why do you think that in society, why do you think that some people in particular have more of an integrity compared to others?
Well, I think a lot of that, Chris, has to do with upbringing. I was mentored into, and I saw the integrity, and these men in my life, they stressed and they demonstrated that your word was your bond. And once you gave your word and shook hands on it, you didn't need an agreement. And if they could not meet the agreement that they had met or said, then they would come to you. My father taught me to go to people when I made a commitment and I couldn't honor that commitment for whatever reason. He taught me to go to them and sit down with them and let them know what my situation was and why I could not, meet my word. So it has to do with mentoring, you see, and I see a whole lot of lack of mentoring today with the young people. They don't want to be mentored. They don't want to be told. They don't want to be trained because, that requires discipline, Chris.
I see. So tell me about your education and how you managed to become an electrical engineer on the Saturn V program.
Well, going back in high school, at that time, my particular high school did not offer, physics as an example. And I was fairly good in mathematics. I actually bought physics books and taught myself physics. And I became interested in that time in space, in the rockets that was being developed. The X-15 was the first plane, if you will, that could travel the stratosphere, go into space and come back in. And I was following the X-15 and the developments of all of its various stages that it went through. And I just became very interested in space.
Where did you buy the books?
I would go to the library and actually read in the library and actually buy my own physics books through school. I was able to buy those books. I would go online and I could.
So you went to like a university or somewhere where they have books for sale and or curriculum books, and you said, "Hey, can I just buy the books, please?"
Yes, exactly, Chris. One of the aspects about my life that I was taught as well is to always be a self-starter. So I never needed anyone to motivate me. I was always a self-starter and always initiating. Let me give you a prime example. At my uncle's service station, I became interested in mechanics. And I actually went to Sears and applied for a credit application, filled out a credit application, and was able to buy my own toolbox online at Sears. But that, my dad was amazed. I had just taken that initiative to go do that. So I've always been a person who self-initiates and is self-motivated, and it's been my pleasure to transfer that culture, if you will, to my children as well, Chris.
Very nice, amazing. So why don't you tell me more about what you would pick? We're going to pick back up with those books. You study the books, you would go to the library, you would self-educate, and you gained an interest in rockets.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, it was quite interesting because my teachers were amazed with my doing that on my own, Chris. And then ultimately, that just led me into the engineering school. As I went to college, my parents had 3 other siblings coming behind me. So at college, I ended up working 2 jobs while I was at college. I decided to stay an extra year and actually went to summer school the entire time I was at college, because I graduated not only with an engineering degree, but I graduated also with a minor in math, a minor in psychology, and a minor in business. You know, as just as a result of my wanting to learn. I'm very much like you. I enjoy learning, Chris.
Nice, very nice. Well, these are some things that you and I had never shared with each other, and this is turning out to be a special event.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You know, I wanted to just add to you, you know, we talk about being self-motivated and initiated. Between my junior and senior year at college, I actually applied for a summer internship with NASA. And there was 1,500 applications, you know, from various engineering schools applying for NASA. And I was selected to go and work. So I actually worked my internship in Houston, Texas, with NASA, and that there I met many of the NASA scientists, of course, but also many of the astronauts would come because Houston is known as Manned Spacecraft Center, and that's where all the astronauts trained and lived. So it was an awesome summer, but again, I took the initiative between my junior and senior year to actually apply for, you know, for that position, and I was selected to be one of those internships in Houston, Texas, with the astronauts.
Well, so wow. So here's something that's strangely peculiar. Is this morning I made an announcement that we are going to start an internship program for the Solomon's Treasure.
Mm, that's
And
wonderful.
and I didn't know that you were part of an internship with the astronauts. Let's talk about what that was like. Let's really dive into that. What was it like to be with the astronauts in an internship?
While I was in college, Chris, it was mind blowing, you know, to find myself standing next to some of the astronauts when they would come in to the Houston facility. And, you know, I would get up every morning and actually be in the plant for 7 o'clock in the morning, and many times come out 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the evening. Most of the days during the week, Chris, I didn't see the sun unless I went outside during the day, because I would go in before daylight and I would come out of the plant at night. But it was an awesome experience working with them, and seeing their level of training. It was just a really special time. As I look back, you know,
How
I
old were
think
you? How old were you at the time?
maybe 19, 20 years old, Chris, between my junior and senior year.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yes, it was awesome. But, you know, here's the thing, Chris, you never know where life is going to lead you. And one of the things I've learned is that you cannot be fearful. You have to take the initiative on your own. And once you take that initiative, then doors will open for you, and lead you into places that really and truly you never imagined was available to you. But if you don't take the initiative, or if you're fearful, then those opportunities will ultimately be for somebody else.
Yes, yes. And so I think that's a very important aspect that you just taught me. I want to say thank you for sharing that. I am I'm super how to say it. I'm very privileged to have you as a friend and as a mentor in a way.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Chris. It's my honor to have you in my life, and I trust that you'll be blessed by me having you in your life.
For sure. Well, you're a man. You're an honest man, and you've been well as best to your ability, of course. But you weren't born that way. You had to train yourself, and you've developed, and you have a discipline of understanding when and how to dominate. The way that you interact with people and the words that you choose, and so you've honed your skills. But that all came from a framework that had an interest in having integrity, purity, honesty, and dedication. And so, I see that in you. And for the people who are watching, seeing you, that for the first time maybe in their lives, I mean, very few people know of you in comparison to how many people there are on the planet. And as far as online, this is a real unique treasure of testimony, because you, sir, have done many more things besides internship with astronauts. So let's go into, how long did that internship last?
It was the entire summer, and then I went back to college for my senior year, and graduated. Chris, when I started in engineering, there was more than 100 students in the engineering class, in the freshman class. And 5 years and 3 summers later, and I say summers because I remember I stayed on campus during the summers. It was very lonely time, but that's where I was able to pick up the extra credits for math, psychology, and business. So there were more than 100 that started in my freshman class. In 5 years, 3 summers later, there was 19 of us that graduated, and I was third in my class.
Third in your class.
Yes. So
that's quite exceptional.
But it required the discipline. You see, you have to be disciplined to do the work, to get up, and study, in the night hours, to go to bed at college, going back to discipline, to go to sleep at a reasonable hour, an early hour, so you could wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning when the dormitory was very quiet and you could study. And I would study. Sometimes I would wake up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'd study right up until the test time and go right into the test and make the good grades, because I would just study leading right up into the test. So, leading a disciplined life has a lot to do with our level of success. If you're not disciplined, because discipline requires focus, and you have to stay focused irrespective of all the distractions.
Yes, I can definitely agree with that. And
Yeah.
you're a testimony as to why it's worthwhile to be disciplined, why it's worthwhile to remain focused. And the reason is because you're able to create a better life for yourself, and you're able to create a better life for your loved ones, ultimately making the world a better place.
Yes, it begins with us, Chris. That there are rewards for being disciplined. You look at Michael Jordan practicing basketball 8 hours a day to become the best that he became. You look at Kobe Bryant making that same type of decision, and then he began to pull on Michael Jordan as a mentor. And Michael Jordan got to the place where he would call him my little brother. When he addressed him at the funeral, he addressed him as my little brother. And he talked about how he would call him in the wee hours of the morning. So, you know, there's a reward for the discipline. It's not unrewarded. There's a reward with it.
Yes, definitely a reward, because you know you're able to reach your higher potential.
Yes, and that's the other aspect. You have to want to be the best. You have to want, you have to have that desire to not miss out on any opportunities. But you have, you know, that again, you have to want to be the best that you can be, and know that that's going to require a lot out of you to become the best that you can be.
It will require everything that you can give.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, a full dedication.
The dedication, the commitment, the focus, the discipline, all of it goes with it.
Very nice, very nice. Very valuable information, Ralph. So from college, let's see, so you went to high school. Where'd you graduate high school from, and where'd you graduate college from?
Yeah, high school in Opelousas. It was a Catholic school called Holy Ghost High School, and then my uncle wanted to go to a college called Tuskegee Institute in Alabama, and he never got there. So I was heavily influenced by him, because Tuskegee had one of the best engineering schools in the South, and they had the foreign student program. So you competed against some of the best foreign minds there. I remember one of my best friends became a guy from India. His name was Kamar Tawarsan, and he was brilliant math student there, and he became one of my best friends. So I ended up going to Tuskegee engineering school. Actually, I went on a basketball scholarship, because one of the things, going back to discipline, is that, you know, I played basketball in high school and was very disciplined in playing basketball. And then once I left college, then I actually went to a place called Ocala, Florida. And Ocala, Florida is where my wife is from. Ocala, Florida. I met her there some 50 years ago. And I actually created the electronics department there at the junior college in Ocala. In other words, I wrote the curriculum. I had the Florida School Board in Tallahassee approve the curriculum. I bought all the electronic equipment, and I actually then went out and recruited the students for the electronic program. That program in Ocala, Florida, at the junior college is still going today, Chris.
You were the one who started it. That's amazing.
I'm the one who started it. You know, I believe in life there are starters, you know, like the White brothers and many others. You know, God has given us an innate ability to be starters, and not just starters, but game changers. You know, when you have to want within yourself the desire to, when you leave this earth, to know that you've had some level of impact and you've brought some level of change to society, you know, for the better, Chris. I can give you a more recent example. You know, my wife was in the hospital recently, and I wasn't pleased with the service or the care that she was getting. So I went and I wrote up, I expressed my dissatisfaction with patient care, and patient care wrote my dissatisfaction up. And a week later, we had a meeting with all the parties concerned that was taking care of my wife, including the doctor. And I explained to him, and everyone in that meeting, must have been about 10 people in that meeting, why we were here, and what my dissatisfaction was, and how I felt like my concerns were not being properly addressed. And I just finally got frustrated with not having my concerns addressed. So I had no other choice but to go to patient care and express that. Well, over the last 2 weeks, I've interacted with so many people at the hospital that now patient care and the doctor that's taking care of my wife has actually asked me to sit on the board for patient care, so I can help those and help the hospital, as they put it, help the hospital become more efficient. So, again, that's just the initiative, that comes with it, and so now I'll be sitting on the board of the hospital, helping the hospital reach a higher place of excellence, because they expressed, I said, if you want it, you talk about you want excellence, but then excellence comes, you have to strive for excellence. It doesn't come automatic.
There's a cost for excellence.
Absolutely.
It is not free.
No, it is definitely not. It goes back to discipline. If you're not disciplined, or here's the thing too, Chris, if you're not willing to make changes, then you can never accomplish the level of excellence that you want, because you just don't want to change. To achieve anything requires change. We're in an evolving.
Change daily. There's a daily growth, a daily change,
Yes.
as you're moving and you're going about and you're encountering,
even
within yourself, and an exterior resistance, and you have to push past forward, pass through these boundaries of ever expansion, of ever expanding growth. It never stops.
No, absolutely. It never stops. It's every single day, every single hour of the day. It never stops.
Yes, I love that. Very, very, very good information there. Well,
and
I'm going to put my video back on, so
sure.
you can feel. Let some people. We're gonna digest this a little bit, and I was actually taking a snack. I was eating a snack, and so talk about digestion, and so you and I, we spoke before the offer to have your addition, your presence on the board. You and I spoke before that happened, and that was the first time that we had spoken a while. And let me make sure there's this thing called Headspace, and yeah. So I am impressed with the position you found yourself at since we last spoke. I think that you on the board at the hospital is a monumental example of what it's really like and what's really needed if we want to help change our communities.
Yes.
A community is not changed without actual physical, tangible action. And the type of action that it requires, in my opinion, is what you are doing is a perfect example. It's a perfect example, and there's thousands of people just like you every day who are standing in the gap and filling in positions of, I would say, responsibility comes to mind when I think of where you are, because it requires something from you, and what it requires is your attention and your dedication and your servitude, your self-sacrificial for
Yes.
for the common good.
Yes.
And I think that the chair, the committees that are on that, the people, the committee, the group, the other members there, as well as the doctor and everyone in the hospital, I think that they must have been impressed with the way that you went about raising your concern. And I think that they must have seen something quite remarkable with the difference between how you've handled things and how they've probably seen from other people. Uh, so I think that at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is how you behave, your behavior,
Yes.
how you interact with others in a moment that would seem troubling for some, to where they're not capable of respectfully voicing their concerns. And I think that is where the rubber meets the road.
Yes.
That's where the rubber meets the road. How
Yes.
you act with
Yes.
people.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so this is good for me. And but I don't want to turn this into me. This is your time. There's going to be lots of time for me to speak with a podcast. So, man, brother, it's just so nice to have you on, and it's really nice to see you. You seem very healthy. You seem very happy, and even though you mentioned, your wife is going through some difficulties and challenges, but yet you have a positive outlook, and that's notable. It's remarkable.
Well, you said it earlier, you have to work through some things. So you cannot allow, I find I cannot afford to allow myself to become depressed over her situation when there's nothing I can do about her situation but give the best that I can. Once I give the best that I can, then there's nothing else I can do. So, I've made an internal decision that I have to continue to move forward. She would want me to continue to move forward and not become so despondent over her situation or any situation that it stops you from becoming who you are.
Ralph, question: how old are you, and how long have you been married with her?
I'm 79. I've been married 56 years, and I knew her 4 years in college. So I've been knowing her for 60 years.
You met each other when you were 17 years old.
That's right. She was married at 18, and I was 21.
Nice. Nice.
So
56 years.
56 years. Yes.
I'm 36 years old. Your marriage is 20 years older than me.
Yes. Yes. It goes back to commitment too, Chris, that you don't throw the baby out with the dishwater, because my wife and I went through a turbulent time for about 2 or 3 years. And
what year in the marriage did it become a little challenging?
When I was 38, it became challenging. When I was 38 years old.
That was 17 years into the marriage.
Yes.
And what was going on with you at the time? When did you, well, before we go there, what year and how old were you when you were helping out with the program? You said you got recruited on, and when did that take place?
The apprenticeship you're talking about? What program you talking about?
Oh, I'm sorry. So when you were working as an electrical engineer, did you work on the actual construction of the Saturn V rocket?
Yes, I was a test engineer, and you have to realize that every single component part of the rocket, of the entire Saturn V rocket, all 5 stages of it, every single component had to be test or flight certified. So I was an environmental test engineer, and I had to take various component parts. I was given various component parts of the moon rocket itself, and I had to test it. There were 7 different types of tests. There was the shock test, the cold test, extreme cold, extreme heat, altitude test, cryogenics. So there were 7 different tests, and every component part had to be flight qualified. You know, for instance, the batteries that supplied all the electrical source for the booster, because that's what I worked on. I worked on the booster, the first stage that got us off the ground. And there were batteries on there, just like the batteries in our car, but far, far more sophisticated, that had to supply the electrical to every component part of the booster rocket. Well, the flight time for the booster rocket was 160 seconds. And the batteries, when tested, would only last 140 seconds. They would conk out because of the vibration and the heat. They would actually fail at about 140 seconds. So
that was your particular role.
Yes, that was my particular role. You know,
very cool. Very, very, very cool.
Yes, and you know,
yeah, that was a lot of work.
It was a lot of work, and it was a lot of responsibility, because you had to write test reports for every component that you tested and certified that it was flight worthy. And then they gave you a stamp. Every engineer had its own stamp, so I had to put my stamp on every test that I ran, and that's why whenever, you know, any component part failed in flight, that component part could be traced among 50,000 engineers. That component that failed could be traced right back to you.
50,000 engineers are the number that was working on the Saturn V program, or the entire operation, where, you know, we're talking from launch to touchdown when they came back?
Oh no, we're talking about production of the Saturn V, just the booster alone. You had 4 other stages. You had the LEM, you know, the lunar module, which landed on the moon and they rode around in. So you probably had easy 100 150,000 people working on just the construction of it and the testing of it, separate and apart from the guys at the command center.
That seems like a lot of people, and the level of control that would be needed. When I say
Oh,
control,
yes.
I mean quality control.
Oh, yes.
Because one mistake is all that it takes for the entire thing to fail. Every
Absolutely.
single part has to have its quality, and it has to fit. It has to integrate. It has to have integrity. It has to be flawless.
That's right.
Absolutely perfect, 100%, or it's a complete catastrophe.
Yes.
It will cost people their lives.
And it has cost people their lives, astronauts their lives.
When did you start? Were you at the beginning of the entire program? Were you there while they were beginning it, or were you there in the middle or the end?
Pretty much, I was there from the middle until the end. Chris, is when I got.
So you were brought on. You were brought on after there had already been some loss of life.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Because before the Saturn V, you had the Gemini program. And the Gemini program is what put John Glenn in space, the first man to go in space. So you had programs leading, and then before the Gemini program, as I was talking, that airplane, the X-15, was a prelude to that. So the space program, like anything else, evolved.
I see.
Yeah, it evolved, and you were gathering information and new technology, for the next phase of the program.
Got it. Makes sense. And so
Yeah.
you were coming in after the Apollo missions had already started.
Yes, that already started, which was good because they had somewhat settled down on what qualities they wanted, what tests they wanted, that type of thing. One of the amazing part of the test program, Chris, as I think about it, was the heat shield on the capsule coming back in. I was involved in testing the heat shield, and it basically is like a honeycomb that the bees create to deflect the heat, because I think it's 8 to 10 minutes where there's completely loss of all communication, because the temperatures around the capsule coming in is over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And that heat shield had to deflect the heat from around the capsule. Otherwise, the astronauts, would have burnt up. The whole capsule would have burnt up. And I had the privilege of testing the vibration with these huge vibration machines for the heat shield,
That's pretty amazing. I don't have any other friends who can tell me the same thing.
Well, we're the old guys. We're dying off. I'm be 79 next month, November. Just like I think there are very few World War II veterans left.
Yeah, there's few and far between as time passes.
Yeah.
And so let's go to the age you said 37, 38. you mentioned your wife and you were having more of a challenging time during that season. There was 2 or 3 years, you say, that was a little bit, um, I guess you could say, trying is is the word, but trial by fire. When it comes down to it, it was a testing time, it was a proving time, it was a refining time, it was a purification time. You two were growing together, and learning how to overcome that. So in endure, you learned endurance during that time. So could you share what it was like for you and what you think it was like for her?
Well, I'll tell you what what led up to it, to the at age 38, I had reached a place where I believe I had experienced everything in life that I could experience. I had accomplished a relatively high level of success being in a space program. You know, I had tailor-made shark skin suits, $2,000 each. My wife had a 535 BMW. I had a 735 BMW. She had her own bank account. She worked for Chiquita. She was a manager for Chiquita brand bananas, the local regional office here. She was the top lady in charge of distribution. So she had her own bank account. She had her own clothes. I had the 735 BMW. She had a 535 BMW. I would go to the racetrack as an outlet. So I guess I had gotten to the place, Chris, where I felt like I had tasted, we had 2 homes, we had bank accounts, we were eating out probably 4 times a week. We were going to all sorts of restaurants, going on vacation. I just got to the place, Chris, bottom line, I got to the place where I felt like I had tasted everything of life that I could taste. And there was still this dissatisfaction within me. And I didn't know what the rest of my life was going to look like. So, if you will, I had everything, but at the same time, I felt like I had nothing. And if this was all that life afforded me, then I had already reached it at age 38.
Okay, so tell me more.
So I began looking for the significance of life at that point, because life to me had become somewhat meaningless because I had accomplished, I didn't know what else I could accomplish. And so I began this quest for finding out the meaning of life and why I was here. And going back to my upbringing in my Catholic school, in high school, the thing that I didn't mention was that I was an altar boy. And I would get up at 5:30 in the morning to go to 6 o'clock mass. And I served as an altar boy. And I really loved and enjoyed being around the priest and serving on the altar in the Catholic Church. At one time, I thought I was going to become a Catholic priest. So here I am at 38, and I began to pray a lot, because I began to talk to God and say, God, if this all there is to life, then I've accomplished everything. And it just seems kind of meaningless to me at that point. So then I began this quest for finding God. And as a result of that quest of finding God, I ended up finding his son, Jesus Christ, as my Lord and Savior. And that gave my life a whole new meaning when I understood that I was created for a purpose. I'm in the earth for a purpose, and that ultimately I'm gonna die and go back and give an account to God for whether or not I accomplished the purpose that he originally created me for. So it was that kind of seeking and finding that my wife and I began to have the conflict, because I was no longer desirous of living the lifestyle that we had been living, going to the restaurants, going on vacations, all those types of things. I had come to the end of that within me. So it was that quest, that the end of me, that led me to find God and to find exactly why I was created and how Jesus Christ came and died for me so that I could be reconnected and reconciled with God through him, through the works that he did. So my life at age 38 took a drastic change that I'm so glad of, because it gave me a greater meaning and a greater purpose for completing the rest of my time here on the earth.
Very nice, very beautiful story. And I am going to ask some questions. And one question I'm going to ask: Do you no longer go to restaurants?
No, we still go out. My wife and I still love eating out, Chris. We still go to restaurants.
And do you see that during the time when you were first finding and discovering, do you recognize that there was a need for you to be willing to lay down anything and everything, but yet later finding out that all that you've laid down, you never really lost?
That's right. I gained. That's exactly right.
Yes.
It was a lifestyle change, Chris. It gave me eternal meaning versus a temporal meaning.
Would you say you became aware of a master design, master plan, something bigger than you, external, that unites and gives purpose? Well, you've already mentioned purpose and meaning, but you recognize that there was something beyond this world, and even after we pass over, that you can invest your time now into helping mold a possible better outcome in the future. Does that ring true?
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about where she was, and the 2 to 3 year, where did things come back into where you have two people with the same yoke pushing in the same direction?
That's a good synopsis or analysis or observation, Chris, because we had gotten to the place where we were pushing in opposite directions because I had reached that plateau, but but she hadn't. So she still wanted to live the way we had been living, and I was no longer willing to live because I was on a different quest. So,
Well, is it fair to say that you were both on the same quest, but you just didn't realize it at the time?
yes, you know, I discovered, Chris, that rather than staying in a adverse situation or a continuous conflicting situation, because for the most part, I'm a person who don't like conflict, that I decided it was time for me to leave. So I left. I packed up and left for a year and a half. And that gave her the time that she needed to make a decision as to whether or not she wanted to keep her marriage. What was the importance of her marriage? And it was also a time where she began this quest to find God as well. And after that,
let me get this straight, because what you're sharing here is something that you don't hear too often. You took a sabbatical, so to speak. You
yes,
decided to take a leave of absence. You were going to go on a celibacy run, so to speak,
yeah,
and just put that on hold. And you even packed up and moved out, but you didn't go searching for other women. You just let her have some time. I've never heard of such a thing, to be honest with you. That takes quite a bit of confidence there, doesn't it?
Well, that's what happened. I found a home I could rent. I had my own pool table, and I would get on the phone and call my mom in Opelousas, and she would teach me how to cook the foods. So it was a good time away from each other that year and a half. And
but did you two talked on the phone every
yeah,
so often? It's
yeah,
not as though you had cut communication, and even before you did pack up and move, I assume that you had a conversation with her to explain your position, no?
I did. I did, and explain my position to her. It was still very difficult for her to understand or accept that position because it represented somewhat of a major change in me. And eventually she went to work one day, and I just packed up, and when she came home, I had moved out. So then the reality of my moving out and all that I had been saying to her, she came face to face with it when she came back home. During that year and a half, we would communicate.
Do you think she cried when she came home?
I think she was in complete disarray when she came home. You have to realize that she's working for a Fortune 500 company. She has her own bank account. She has a 535 BMW. She goes out, she buys her own clothes, whatever jewelry she wants. She has the capability. So she's an independent woman to a large extent, even though, we're married. So it took the reality of shaking her world up as to, was her marriage as important to her, if not greater to her, than all the things and all the accomplishments that she was achieving. I can't hear you.
I had my mute on. Sorry.
I thought it was mine.
So you had come to a decision where apparently you figured that by doing so, this was going to be the best decision for you and for her.
Yes.
And at the time, did you have kids?
Yes.
How old were your kids?
My daughter was in high school, and I had another daughter that was right behind her. She was in 8th or 9th grade. She was in 7th or 8th grade, my middle daughter, my youngest daughter, and my oldest daughter was in high school at that time. But I felt like after having so many discussions that it was time. The only other way I could accomplish what I had been saying or hoping to accomplish was to actually move out, because it was not happening while I was still there.
So what was it that you were wanting to accomplish? Were you simply wanting to, have your voice heard, maybe a recognition, or did you want something in her did you want her to recognize something? What was your motivation? You wanted her to be different, or how does that work exactly?
Well, you get caught up, Chris. We were caught up in materialism, and I had gotten to the place where materialism wasn't working for me anymore. She was still in materialism, the restaurants, the vacations, the clothes, the jewelry.
Can you define what materialism means to you, and why that's something that you did not want?
Well, it was something that I had come, what ultimately we were created in the image and likeness of God, and we lost our connection with God when Adam sinned. And there was a man that I met, and he's a minister, and he and I went for a walk in the park, our local park here. I'll never forget it. And he began to ask me these questions. And before he asked me the questions, Chris, he challenged me to guard my heart. He said, I want you to guard your heart. I'm going to ask you some questions. And he began, although I didn't fully understand what guard my heart was, but apparently he had done this before, because he had taken somewhat the same path in his marriage. So he asked me this. He says, who is Ralph LeBlanc without his money? Who is Ralph LeBlanc without his wife? Who is Ralph LeBlanc without his children? Who is Ralph LeBlanc without his BMW? Who is Ralph LeBlanc without his tailor-made $2,000 shark skin suits?
He literally asked you each of these questions.
He began to strip me of everything that was important to me.
To show you, for the purpose of showing you something.
Yes, because once you're stripped of those things that are important to you, then you should be able to still stand there and not allow those things to define you, not allow your accomplishments to define you, or my money to define me, or my success, or my clothes, or my jewelry, or my cars, or my accomplishments. All of those things have a tendency of defining us. But when we go back to the grave, we should have more than those things to define us, because we should have accomplished them knowing that we're completing the purposes of God for which I was sent.
So do you think that by this interaction that you had, do you think that interaction helped you in a way rediscover, or even discover for the first time, who you really are when it's all said and done? You know, we're not taking anything with us. We've just been born here without, choosing to be born. We were just born one day, and one day we won't necessarily be choosing that we will be gone. So you believe that there is a reward in the way that you conduct yourself while living in this story. I consider it a storybook of life, and how we conduct ourselves. It plays an impact on what's to come after. So and at the time, you said that you went to Catholic. You were an altar boy, but yet you did not know about the opportunity that you have to put aside certain things now in order to become a different person tomorrow. You didn't have those. You were, I'm going to study. I'm going to fall in love. I'm going to work really hard, and I'm going to have some beautiful children, and this is the life. And then one time you reach a point where, well, I didn't expect this plot twist, and now it's almost some could even consider it in a way a midlife crisis.
Yes.
The timing of it was during a moment typically when humans begin to wonder, wow, what's going to happen once I finish this other part?
Yeah.
And so you had responded in a manner that you had seemed to be the best for you, correct? And that led to making a choice to taking a break from even your relationship. But can you give me a specific on what was the what were you wanting to accomplish with the communication with your wife? What were you looking for? What were you waiting for? What happened to put it back together? Did she have an aha moment, or how did that go? What did that look like? What did you say at the beginning that you had did you have some type of expectation?
I had expectation that I didn't want to chase things the rest of my life at age 38. Life had gotten to the place where it really had no more meaning to me, Chris, because I had basically accomplished so much. I mean, there's only so much that money can buy. One car should satisfy you, but it doesn't even 10 cars doesn't necessarily bring the satisfaction. So I was just at a place where I was tired of chasing dreams and materialistic. We had become materialistic. And the thing about the walk in the park is that man, God used that man to literally strip me of everything that was important to me or who I thought I was. And the reality of it was that he left me standing there naked in a sense, because at that juncture, I didn't know who I was without when all those things were taken from me. I had no idea what identity. I didn't have an identity. My identity was.
Do you know what the word ego? What does the word ego mean to you? When I say ego.
Well, I was certainly puffed up with accomplishments. I mean, I'm working at NASA. I'm working for the space program. I'm leaving at 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm going to the racetrack. So, ego and pride. I'm prideful of what I've accomplished, and looking down on others who are not driving a BMW. Looking down on others in a demeaning way because they can't afford tailor-made shark skin suits. That's pride and ego and arrogance, with accomplishments. And I realized too, Chris, that going back to my Catholic upbringing, that there's a difference between religion and relationship. And I had lots of religion. I had lots of rules and regulations that came with being associated with the Catholic Church. And even though I was an altar boy serving God, I really didn't have a relationship with God. And the only way I found that I could have a relationship with God was to accept God's plan for me to have a relationship with him. And that was realizing that he sent his son on the earth, and his son died on the cross and hung there for 6 solid hours, paying the price and the penalty for my sins so that I could be reconciled with God. So I realized that I had a religion, but I did not really have. The whole time I was serving God, it was religion through rituals, but I did not have a relationship with God because I had not accepted and I had really not heard of the plan of God for me to be reconciled. And for the first time in my life, I heard God's plan for me to be reconciled back to him.
So your ego dissolution is what I'm gonna coin that phrase here. It's not really my original phrase, but I'm going to pull that in from another area of study that I've been doing, as far as, well, God has some amazing surprises on this planet for us. One of them is the fact that we have such a wonderful creation to enjoy. We have a wonderful world to
Yeah,
enjoy, and so you had found after the fact that you could enjoy life, but you felt but you had a type of ego dissolution. I would categorize it as such, and that allowed you to begin to recognize that there was something beyond the other
yes,
side.
yes,
It was beyond the other side, and you wanted to pursue beyond the other side as opposed to just this side here, because you had I would use the word you tasted, you had a sample, so to speak, of something that's to come, and
yeah,
and you wanted that and to pursue that, as opposed to just what you could get at the very moment's notice.
yes,
You wanted something beyond yourself. I see, and I'm speaking almost in a way, sort of projecting it even, because that's where I have my experience when it comes to seeking after truth, and being willing to accept truth when you see it. And
yeah,
so there's almost a scientific discovery process that's involved here. It's not as though something, a person of yourself, an academic person, a man who loves to study, you saw that this was something worth it. You could challenge yourself to, and gain something by by pursuing this other alternative
yeah,
future.
yes.
So your wife, she didn't understand it, and so what happened to bring you two back together?
What happened was, when I came into the knowledge of Jesus Christ, uh, there was a group of men known as the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship that I joined because I had the business by that time, the initial stages of the business at that time. So I joined this. It's
Ralph,
a
I've
yes,
I've actually heard of that group. I came across some of those men down in Honduras. They've got chapters now. That organization has chapters all around the world. The
yes,
Full
that's right.
Gospel Businessmen Association, something like that, around
Yeah,
those terms
yeah,
today. So
yeah.
you were 38. How old what year was that? 38. When you were 38.
Uh, let's see. I was born in 1941, and I was 38. So that was 1979, Chris.
I was 5 years before I was born.
Yes. So uh, I, I shared with my wife, Christmas is coming, and I shared with my wife on the phone that I wanted her to go to a Christmas party with me. And she wanted to know what kind of party was it, because normally a Christmas party to us meant a lot of dancing and a lot of drinking. And I shared with her that this Christmas party, there was not going to be any drinking at this party, and that it was a Christian party or an organization I had joined. and we went to this home, and it was that night that she came to realize much of what I had been saying, or certainly realize what I had experienced, because she had the opportunity that night, which she accepted Jesus Christ as her Lord and Savior as well. So she became, if you will, that born again new person that night at that potluck Christmas.
So this was a year and a half after you two had taken a break?
Yes, it was the end of that year and a half. That's correct.
And you were associating yourself and spending your time with that group. You met that group after the encounter with the man at the park.
Yes, that's right.
And then you got tied into that group.
Yeah.
And then you began to go to those. Did they have the weekly meetings at the time?
They had weekly meetings at the Shoney's here in the private room. We'd have breakfasts there,
Mm-hmm.
and it'd be singing and
You said
praising.
Shoney's? Did you say Shoney's?
Yeah, the Shoney's restaurant.
They
That's
still
right.
got those around here?
Yeah.
Are they still in business?
We only have one left here in New Orleans area that I know of right now. They eventually converted that Shoney's to a legacy restaurant here that we've gone to many times since.
Nice.
But that was the change.
Ralph, do you still communicate with some of those same men in that group? Do you still go to those meetings?
Those meetings basically have since ceased here, but I am in touch with one of the guys that was very close to me and instrumental in my life during that period of time. Yes.
Very neat.
But
Very
you
neat.
know, because Chris, God was dealing with me about restoring my marriage. He gave me a choice on whether or not I wanted to restore my marriage. And I said, I don't want to restore my marriage in the state she's in. We're just going to continue to have conflict. So that's when the unity came. The unity came when she had the encounter and accepted, the Lord as her Lord and Savior, and the finished work that he did for her individually on the cross.
So in a way, basically, you as the husband had made a lifestyle change, in short.
Yes.
And she was not in agreement with making any changes. She
that's
wanted
right.
to just continue the way they're going. She was content with the way things were, have been, and simply wanted those things to continue. And you had to make a choice for your own health and for the health of your marriage, which was a heck of a, in my opinion, that's quite a leap of faith, as some would say, walking on the water there. But you got to a point where you realized now it's time to recognize that there's about to be a shift, and your participation in what happens is going to determine whether or not you're going to have the relationship or not have the relationship. You're either going to part ways, or maybe it was almost just like a flag signal saying, here comes the moment where your participation at this point is take note. And so you invited her to go to the group meeting. Did she go to any of those meetings beforehand?
No, this was the first one.
So you were going to these meetings regularly every week, or when did you come across that group? Like halfway through, since you met the man at the park, to the year and a half?
Yeah, I met this guy, and we're going every week to the meetings on Saturday mornings, and it would probably from 9 until 12, 1 o'clock, we would be in that room. It was just a minute that time, and then there were periodic meetings where the families would come together, the wives would come together, picnics, that type of thing. And I was participating while she was still, at home deciding whether or not.
Hey, Ralph, what did you say to people when they were like, "Are you married?" And you're like, "Yeah." "Where's your wife?" Here,
No,
sit
they knew.
down. Let me. What do you do in that situation, huh?
No, I shared with them that we were separated, that I was trying to find myself and the meaning of life, and she was at a place where she was trying to find the meaning of life for herself. So they all knew that I was separated and was really praying for me.
So they weren't discouraging you in any way.
No.
No one planted into your mind, "Hey, just go take this break." You thought, were you just one day in your marriage, you just came to the realization, I can take a break, but yet not break my vow, and set it aside, and let's see if this works, because nothing else is working. And so you made that move, and then you came across this group of people, and in that environment, they never once told you to just run away or whatever, but they were supporting for you two to be back together. So what happened when she came to the group meeting? I bet some of them people were pretty excited that she showed up, huh?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The men were excited and the women were excited. Everybody was excited.
Oh, was she really happy that she showed up?
She became happy. She went in, obviously, under suspicion and skepticism about all of this, because,
did she ever grow up in a praying environment? Did she know anything about relationship with the Creator?
Yes, she grew up. She saw her grandmother. She was raised by her grandmother through high school, up until 9th grade in high school in Florida. And her mother was a Baptist. And so she experienced, the Baptist church and the singing, and saw her grandmother, a very devout Baptist.
A praying grandmother.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Praying grandmothers, plugged for the praying grandmothers. You ladies make the world go round.
Yes, they absolutely do. They have, she impacted.
Praying grandmothers. If y'all don't know that secret,
yes,
then maybe you don't have a praying grandma.
Yes. Yes.
I know that secret.
You know that secret, huh?
Yeah, I got one of them.
Yes, they lay the foundation for our lives, don't they? In many ways.
Well, my grandmother, I told you about her. I know we're going to get off subject now, but I want to start another, because would you believe it that we've already been speaking together for 2 hours now?
Yes, I see that.
So let's try to wean into half-hour, 2 half-hour segments. Can we do 1 more hour? Are you down for that?
Yeah, that's fine. Sure.
You need to take a restroom break, or
no? I'm fine. I can go.
No recess, no intermission.
No, I'm fine.
Good.
How about you?
So far so good. Well, and the other thing is too, the great part about being on my end is I can give you, hey, speak for 5 minutes and disappear for a second, and
yes,
and you're not even know if I'm here.
Yes. You've mastered this down to a science.
I'm just starting, but I think the interaction part, the best part that I like out of this is the capacity to interact with people, and I think it's monumental for my own personal growth. I think it's remarkable for my mental health and my overall health and the health of my family, because English is my first language, but yet we speak Spanish in the home, and I'm still learning Spanish, and I do that as a gift for my children. Uh, they're going to be able to speak both languages a lot easier this way,
Yes,
and it's a sacrifice for me, but having this venue where I can interact with people, it's been very therapeutic, and
yeah,
it's actually a lot of fun. Um, I think more people should try it, and so
I agree.
so we're thinking another hour. So let's maybe break up a little bit on a framework. 30 minutes talking about one area topic and 30 minutes on another. Um, but what I want to touch in this 1 hour, I want to touch the subject of, we're going to touch the subject of cannabis. We're going to touch the subject of bypass oil filtration. We're going to touch the subject of why both of those two are very important. And we're going to talk about, well, we're going to talk about those two. Now, how we're going to do it, I don't know.
Okay. Nothing like impromptu. So
Yeah, we're just going to figure it out.
yeah,
We've got an hour to play with it. And so, Ralph, I called you up the other day for people who don't know. You and I, we've had an ongoing relationship for the better part of 5 years, and uh, we initiated our communication for the first time because you own a business, and the business that you own is Petro Savers. Would you like to introduce the company? Give an explanation of what it is, how long you've been in business, what you do, and why what you do makes a difference. Can you do that?
sure, Chris. I'll try. Uh, while I was at NASA working on the moon rocket program, there were 15 moon rockets. And by the time that we got to 13, the 13th, 14 moon rocket.
I'm gonna be here with you. I'm not gonna take off and mute and
Okay,
so
no
I'm gonna
problem.
be there and watch. Do you enjoy this more? Have it? Can you see me?
Yeah, it's fine.
Do you like
But
do you like being able to see me? What makes you feel better, more comfortable?
no, it doesn't matter. I can do it either way. I enjoy seeing you, but I can do it probably equally without you, Chris.
What
It's
happens? What happens if I push this button? Do I go away?
no, you don't go away.
You can still see me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we're gonna keep it on this view because this gives you the full screen.
Okay. So what I was saying was I started wondering what I was going to do next. And, going back to my grandparents and parents, that entrepreneurial spirit was, I felt like I had a call, if you will, to have my own business because they had their own business and I was brought up in that environment. So I started looking for what I was going to do next because at that juncture, with the 13th and 14th moon rocket success in the program, Boeing and NASA started laying engineers and people off because there was no longer had a need. The program was coming to an end. So I began to look into all kinds of different opportunities to own my own business. And one of those was a friend of mine introduced me to a multi-level marketing program. And at that program, they introduced what was known as the Prelin electric oil refiner. And basically, this was the first technology of cleaning oil. And it was multi-level, where you could come in at different levels and buy a certain number of product and receive a different discount level. So I bought into that program, going back again to not just the entrepreneurial aspect of my life, but also going back to working at my uncle's service station. So I called my uncle and told him about this product, bought one of them, and actually drove to Opelousas and met with him on a Saturday morning at his shop. And he and I together installed this particular unit on my vehicle. That was the first technology. After I left the space program for about a year, I actually installed this product on various engines here and worked with the other distributors here, and eventually bought them out and eventually bought the patent from the owner and began this quest. This was 1969, but that I bought the technology and began this quest of selling this technology. And over the period of time, Chris, I've seen the technology evolve to 5 different stages, 5 different advancements, because it's continuously improving as the engines improve, the environmentalists change. So we're now in our 5th technology evolution of the product.
Okay, so to give an explanation for people who are wondering, what are we talking about?
Yes.
We're talking about a bypass filtration system. Essentially, I'll just go ahead and come out and say it, just like I do with, I believe, science teaches us that cannabis is the number 1 most important substance that we can be eating. It's the number 1 most important vegetable. I'm also going to go ahead and come out and say that oil bypass filtration systems are capable of replacing the oil change. And that's something that you found out. And I know that might sound crazy to people. Chris, you have no idea what you're talking about. You do not have any type of degree in plants. You do not know anything about medical. You don't know anything about what you're talking about there. And you don't know anything that you're talking about with lubrication systems. There's no way you can get around changing the oil inside of an engine. Chris, would you? I'm done watching this show. Thank you very much, Chris.
Yes, unbelief.
It's a phenomenon. It's like Christopher Columbus says, I'm going to sail to the other side of the world. And people were like, dude, are you okay?
Yes.
Have you taken your meds?
Yes.
What are you on?
Yes.
Did you hit your head or something?
Yes.
Did you have a traumatic event that took place in your life recently to where you're not capable of understanding where reality's at, man? Oil changes. So you were introduced to this technology. You took this thing. It's basically, some people could say it's a filter.
Yeah.
You say that it's a refiner. And your customers agree, because what this product actually does, you bought a patent from a guy for a design. You took that design, you made it better. You've made it 5 times. You've gone through that same thing. So you've got a 5th generation of product. And what you do is you install these products now, or you sell the products and people install them, and you are eliminating the need to change oil. Not 100% of the time. I know you can't claim that, but tell me about when was the last time you changed oil on your car?
500,000 miles ago.
You had to have changed your valves. Did you overhaul your motor? Have you changed your bearings? Are you crazy?
No, negative.
Are you crazy?
Negative.
I don't believe you.
Well, when God created us, Chris, he gave us a superficial filtration system that filters all the impurities out of our blood. We still have the same blood we were born with because we have this super filtration in our bodies that remove the impurities. It's the same thing with the engine oil.
You mean my blood should be good for just one blood change, please? Or just no blood changes, please.
No, I'm 79. I've never changed my blood, Chris.
And you're 79 and you haven't changed your oil in your car in 500,000 miles. Are you crazy?
Yeah, that's right.
Are you crazy?
More than 20 years without an oil change.
You haven't changed oil in your car in 20 years. You're out of your mind.
That's what most people think, for sure.
You're a snake oil salesman, bro.
Yes.
Petro savers. Why did you choose petro savers? Because when I hear the word petro, you go to Europe and you're thinking that's fuel.
Yeah.
And so when you're saying I'm saving people on fuel, at least with the name, it can kind of get a little bit confusing. But that's not what you do when you say petroleum.
Petroleum,
right?
Yes.
And you're what some people could arguably say old school, in the fact that you're a big kid now, and you've been around the block a few more times. You've seen many moons.
Yes.
And so that's the way you use the word. That's what you chose. So if somebody wants to look up petrosavers online, they search it and they'll come across your website, right?
Yes, that's correct, Chris.
And so you haven't changed oil in your car in 500 years. So how many times?
20 years. In 20 years.
In 20 years, in 500,000 miles, 500,000 miles. What kind of car do you drive, sir?
It's a 1999 Chevrolet Suburban that I use for demonstration purposes.
You're driving a Suburban.
Yep.
And you haven't changed the engine or the oil in 500,000 miles.
That's correct. And watch this. That's one scenario, but here's another one. The oil in that vehicle at 500,000 miles, from a laboratory perspective, through all analysis, that oil at 500,000 miles is actually better than the brand new oil in the can.
Through a proven third-party laboratory analysis.
Yes.
Your oil has actually gotten better.
Better than new oil in the can.
I don't believe it.
Well, the proof is in the pudding.
I'm not an engineer. I don't have a clue, but maybe I should just say that. Or maybe I should just say, you know what, I'm going to take your word for it. Or actually, how about I tell this for people? I looked into the stuff. You sent me literature. We've signed NDAs, and I've looked at your product close hand. And I've read your literature. The proof's in the pudding. The thing does what it says. So if that's true, then how come it's not on every car?
Well, because the car manufacturers are basically.
Wait, hold on. Before you say that, have you met with these car manufacturers?
I've met with 3 of them.
You didn't sign any NDAs because I don't want to get you in any trouble.
No, I can't name them, but I did meet with 3 of them, and we did sign NDAs.
Oh,
But they are very closely aligned with the oil companies because the oil companies are supplying oils for their engines. They're supplying plastics that's made out of petrol, converted from petroleum, tires. So they're very aligned
they
and
work together. They're on
yeah,
the
they
same.
live together
They're on the same team.
yeah, by the hip, they're connected together.
By the hip. Do you think they play golf together? Some of them
I think
ladies.
they play golf together. I
You
think
think
they go
so?
skiing together. I think
You
they
think
go on
so?
vacations together. I
Yeah.
think they eat out a lot.
Is that what you think?
Yes, I think.
You think so?
And then to install a product that increases engine life and the engine
Wait,
company.
hold on. So yeah, because let's talk about this engine life thing.
Yes, you see.
Wasn't it 10 times? Or wait, it reduces 95% of the engine wear.
That's correct. You
That
got
was a
it.
study from the Society of Automotive Engineers in the 80s.
Yes.
And do you have a link on that on your website?
Yes, I do.
Good.
Yeah. So the engine companies don't want any product that's going to extend engine life because really and truly they're in the parts business.
Well, did you know of a word that's called planned obsolescence? Do you know where that word came from?
Where, Chris?
Didn't that come from the was it which vehicle manufacturer was it that removed a bypass filtration system? Because they weren't almost a standard. They were becoming standard like in the 20s, 30s, 40s. Some of this stuff was being used. And one of the manufacturers says, not only am I going to sell a new different model every year, it's going to have its own chassis. And all the other automotive engineers and all the other automotive manufacturers like, this guy's crazy. There's no way you're going to sell people a new car every year. There's no way you're going to come up with a new frame every year. There's no way you're going to do this.
Yeah.
And I don't remember which person it was or which automobile manufacturer, but I think that from my study, if I remember correctly, that the term planned obsolescence or built-in obsolescence, which basically means it's engineered to last only for so long.
That's right.
To increase profit revenue, because stuff's not made like it was back in the day. And so, 100 years ago, you can buy a product, okay, well, I'll give an example so people can understand. What was it like 100 years ago when you're going to buy something? They've got these cream separators that are on the market. It doesn't have anything to do with cannabis. This doesn't have anything to do with oil or lubricant. It has to do with 100 years ago, there's a product that was for sale. And those things are still on the market today, hot commodity, and being purchased in the United States and shipped overseas to developing nations because they're using these cream separators that are 100 years old because they're better than the ones that you can buy today.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. So something happened in the industry overall, and this particular CEO had a part from what I remember in my studies. He says we're not gonna make stuff last. Well, I can't say what he said and what he didn't say because there's a thing with that. It's called libel or whatever, the LIBEL.
Yes.
It's an important word, Chris. Be careful what you say.
Yes.
And but as far as what I remember, it was basically I think if I remember right, that person removed the filtration, a bypass filtration system off of the vehicle that was becoming a standard thing because in regular oil change interval it wasn't even a problem, but he took it off. And he also began to change the automobile industry. He did change the automobile industry completely because he said, I'm going to sell a car, a different model every year. And at the time that wasn't even happening. I think this was it was either in the 40s or the 50s, if I remember right. And so the pre-lin, the engine oil refiner, did they call it the engine oil refiner back then? And who was the guy who had that patent? It was in like Oklahoma where he came up with it, right?
Yes, it was Eugene Barrows in Norman, Oklahoma, and it was the Preland Electric Oil Refiner.
Yeah. So anybody wants to look that up there, Google away, all you Googlers or DuckDuckGoers. And so the cool thing is, before I get even further off, well, let's see if how I can pull this back in. Planned obsolescence. Your engine doesn't wear out as quick. Your parts don't wear out because your lubricant is clean. You're essentially eliminating your engine wear. So your vehicle that would have lasted, your motor that would have lasted 100,000, 250,000 miles, that motor is due for an overhaul, right? I mean, the one that you got, doesn't it say in the manual that you're supposed to like overhaul it? Like, do you got smoke coming out the tailpipe? What's it like driving behind you?
It's as clean as it can be. There's no smoke. There's
How often do you got to top it off? Because there's got to be some blow by.
Chris, probably, man, 15, 20,000 miles. I can't even remember the last time I added a quart of oil to, because listen,
No. Let's get down to the nitty gritty.
All right.
15, 20,000 maybe. You might have put a half a quart in, a quarter of a quart.
Yes, a half a quart.
Just to top off what the motor automatically burns, because there's blow by between the rings for people that don't understand. The rings have a little bit of a gap. There's a little bit of film residue that's left. Yeah. The engine does burn a little bit of oil, right?
Under normal conditions, it burns a lot of oil. But with this system, you end up with something that's unheard of as well. And that's 100% pure oil in your engine all the time. It's like when our wives cook with 100% vegetable oil. They can cook with that oil and reuse that oil over and over because the items they're cooking with will cook before the oil cooks because it's 100% pure. So
doesn't the heat break it down?
The heat breaks the oil down because of the contamination.
But if you don't have the contamination,
changes the viscosity of the oil. If there's no contamination, then there's no breakdown of the oil.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate. All right.
All right.
Are you a lubricant engineer? Like, do you have a background in study on engineering when it comes to lubrication?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so tell me why you're not crazy.
Because the product works, and we have independent laboratories.
Who do you? So if this product works, then who do you have it? Who are some of your clients?
Oh, we have police vehicles. We have a school bus fleet right now that has 5 million miles on the fleet without an oil change.
How long ago did they become your client?
About 20 years ago, 15 years ago.
Where's the school? Where's that at? If I want to go down, if I want to get in my car, or if I want to get online and I want to call them and ask them.
Yeah, we would introduce you to them. They're right here in Louisiana. You could always contact me at the office number, and we'll arrange an interview for you to talk to the mechanic, the head fleet maintenance guy at the local school district here. There's 120 school buses, and they haven't changed oil in 10 years.
I thought you just said 20.
Yeah, 20 years. They have
What is it, 20 or 10?
Well, what this product is so fascinating that what they've established, what fleets like to do is establish a cutoff, and the cutoff, where they're comfortable, Chris. So this particular fleet.
What do you say when you say cutoff? You mean like They're only going to push it so far. They're not going 500,000 miles on a motor.
No, they go to 100,000 miles on the buses, and then they drop the oil and start fresh, even though they know through independent laboratory testing that the oil at 100,000 miles is still suitable for further use. And now they're on.
Why do they do that?
They're on their fourth revolution. They're at 400,000 miles on the odometer.
Are they just scared, or are they?
No, that's just their comfort zone. Everybody has their different comfort zone. They said, listen, Ralph, at 100,000 miles, we were normally changing oil every 3,000 miles on the gasoline engines and 6,000 miles on the diesel engines. So now they've gone from 6,000 miles on their diesel engines to 100,000 miles on their diesel engines. They're very satisfied with the savings. And they drop the oil, even though they know it's in good condition, and start over. And now some of those buses on the odometer, they have 400,000 miles and only changed oil 4 times in 100,000 and 400,000 miles.
And you have not changed oil in your personal vehicle. That's a display vehicle, a 1999
Chevrolet Suburban.
You got pictures of that online? You got any videos?
Yes, we have videos, lots of YouTube videos you can go to. Yes.
What happens in business if you lie about something like that? And
oh man, you can go to federal pen.
Just so that people know that you're well aware of what you're doing here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You'll go to prison.
Absolutely. You go to prison for this. Absolutely. Because what will happen, Chris, if I am lying and the product doesn't work, is that people are going to start burning engines. I mean, there's no way the school bus, the school fleet has never lost an engine due to the petrol savers. They've hardly lost any engines in the 20 years. So the engines will begin.
They never lost a motor. What about the police?
No.
Has anybody ever lost a motor that you're aware of?
No, because the oil doesn't sludge up because you're not changing it, because you're removing all the contaminants continuously. You're getting 7 oil changes an hour when you install this technology on the vehicle. You'd have to go to a quick lube oil place 7 times in 1 hour to do what this product does while the engine is running.
But what if somebody, I introduced this. Okay, so before we're going to get into the different size of scale that you're able to put these on, because people are thinking, okay, well, a police car is one thing. A bus engine is another. That's like what, 500 horsepower, 1,000 horsepower. But okay, so I got a friend of mine that I told about this technology to, and I said, I asked him, I said, how often are you changing your oil in your drilling rigs for your drilling company he owned before he passed away? The business is still in existence. But this man passed away, but before he passed away, I was like, how often are you changing your oil? Because I know of a guy, and I said, and I think he said he was changing like a drum or 2 drums a week or something like that for his drilling rigs. And I told him, I says, well, I know a guy who can install you something on there to where you won't have to change it as often. And he says, no, I'm old school. I'm just going to go with what I got and just continue to change it. And he did, and that business is still running, doing that thing. But for me, it was an experience. The first time introducing to somebody, or not the first time, but the first time I mentioned it here, when I try to tell somebody about it. And there's obstacles that come up with people because they're used to doing the same thing. They've always heard that they need to do this.
Yeah.
So we're gonna make that parallel with saying to somebody, hey, if you juice the plant raw and you drink it every day, you're going to prevent every type of disease in your body.
Mm.
If you put this thing on your engine's gonna last up to 10 times longer, was what the study of with the Society of Automotive Engineer, right?
Yes, 10 times longer.
10 times longer. So if you got a 1,000,000-mile engine for your tractor trailer, 500,000 horsepower, million-mile engine, you can turn that 1,000,000-mile engine into a 10 million-mile engine, which to drive 10 million miles is going to take a while. I mean, for you to drive a 500,000 miles, it's taken 20 years.
Yes.
Yes, it's a 99, so you probably bought it in 2000 because that's how typically it works. You get the manufacturers usually 6 months before you buy it. And so tell me about how big can you go? And I already know beforehand that you're putting them on the offshore drilling rigs. You're in Louisiana. Can you talk about that?
Sure. Well, we have 7 different sizes, and we size according to the crankcase capacity of the engine, because we want to be able to effectively remove the contaminants. Obviously, the contaminants is the level of contamination is going to be different in each engine because of the horsepower of the engine and the cylinders of the engine. So we have engineered the product to where it's applicable from 5-quart capacity engine to 1,000 gallons of oil on the train engines and the big offshore gas producing.
What about cruise ships?
Yes, cruise ships, certainly. Yes. So we have a range right now that we
Do you have any on cruise ships?
We don't have any on cruise ships yet, Chris. We're working with the cruise ship companies right now. Once the pandemic gets behind us and the tourist industry picks up, then at that point we'll have some cruise ships. But what we've tried to do is cover we have the entire spectrum covered right now, that we have a product that's applicable to any size engine with any size crankcase from 5 quarts to 1,000 gallons of oil.
So drilling rigs in Texas or all over the world, offshore drilling rigs. So this doesn't just, and so 5 quarts to 1,000 gallons is a huge range that basically covers any type or any size of internal combustion engine. You can put this on any size internal combustion engine. But let's talk about how you can also use it for hydraulic fluid systems, brake fluid systems, and fuel. You also have a separate one that's able to filter fuel for and we'll get into that afterwards. But let's talk about the hydraulic and the brake. When is that going to come in handy for not having to change hydraulics?
Well, your hydraulics, there's lots of hydraulics in the commercial application, and also transmission oils. We have
trainees was what I forgot there.
Yeah, the transmission.
Hydraulic, brake fluid. Those are the 4 things that you can put this particular type on, and then you have a separate that is for diesel fuel or whatnot, right?
Yes, exactly. And we're starting to work with some of the windmill companies, because they have lots of oil driving the windmills. So it basically, we can adapt the product.
You mean the windmills that we have in the United States, these huge ones that we've been building over the past 20 years, maybe more like 10 years, really is where they've been popping up. But you mean these things have an oil change maintenance?
Yes. Yes, they have an average of about 300 quarts of oil, gallons of oil in a reservoir, a huge reservoir to turn the propeller blades.
About 6 drums.
Six drums, that's correct.
Of oil. And how often do they got to change that?
They're changing that. Well, they're testing it, and they're getting a lot of condensation in that oil, which causes them to change the oil quite frequently. So it depends upon where they're located and how much condensation they're getting, but the condensation is causing them a lot of maintenance problems. And I mean, when you shut one of those down, you're talking 100,000 from Jump Street in terms of what you're going to, spend.
Wow. Costs a lot of money to change them, I imagine. How would you even do that? I mean, do they have to go to the top, or I mean, I'd imagine an engineer would have something designed to where you are at the base of the thing, but it's there's a lot of labor that goes into changing six barrels.
Absolutely. And that oil is in a reservoir on the ground, and it pumps the oil from the ground. You have a huge pump that pumps it all the way up to the propeller for lubrication. It's quite a system.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. What about military industrial military applications? You got anything on any contracts that you might be able to talk about?
Well, we have some on military, Chris, and I'm bound by confidentiality. I can't disclose what I'd like to, but
is there opportunity for possible affiliate sales or anybody who's helping to make a connection with you to any type of contracts? Is there opportunity for people who are in various industries to make some money by creating a contact?
Certainly, Chris. We're looking for sales agents and representatives all the time to help us obtain more market share and more awareness and to help the environment. We're certainly looking for people like that all the time, and there is opportunity.
Do you have much of any competition in the marketplace?
Not that I know of, Chris. No one. At this point, I would cautiously say we have no competition in the marketplace.
But there's other people selling bypass filtration systems.
Yes.
Yours is superior?
Yes. Because basically, for a large extent, I'm the founding father of this industry. And everyone that's in it now is basically, for the most part, come behind me. So really and truly, if we were to go heads up with any other company on an oil analysis program, we've always come out on top.
Okay. Very good. And you've been in business since 1969?
Since 1990, actually.
Okay, so tell me about the specifics for somebody who's wanting to be a skeptic. Dive into that for a second.
Well, the proof is always in the pudding. That's why we've gone through independent oil analysis. We have thousands of independent oil analysis test results on file that proves and substantiates beyond any question, not to mention reasonable doubt, that our program,
how do those tests work? And what is the test?
Well, the test includes 25 different readings of compounds that is in the oil, which includes all your viscosity, your soot, your fuel, water, wear metal. So it's fairly extensive test that's done on each sample. It's 25 different readings. So it's very comprehensive and very challenging for our technology to meet, the levels of all of those compounds being cleaned continuously. So, that's one of the reasons we use independent oil analysis companies to substantiate our claims.
Okay, so tell me about warranties. Will your product affect the warranty on my brand new, souped up, will it affect my Lamborghini warranty if I got a I got a Lamborghini. Let's just play like I do, huh?
All right. No, Chris, it won't affect any warranties. Manufacturers today, we have letters from them that state that the addition of any aftermarket product will not void the warranty on any engine that the product is installed on, because it would eliminate commerce. It would eliminate, it would give the engine manufacturers, a very strong foothold in the market, and it would basically eliminate companies, innovative companies like myself with the technology we have. It would eliminate us from going into the marketplace, and it would hinder and stifle innovation in the future. So
there's a law. There's like a law that was passed to help protect.
Yes.
Can you mention that law?
That law is known as the Magnuson-Moss Act. And it protects companies like myself to be able to sell products in an aftermarket condition, separate and apart from the manufacturers, without the manufacturer holding a grip on the fleet owners or the individual owners to where you could no longer use this particular technology, because it would just stifle innovation.
Right.
Yes.
So there's a law that protects it. That's good. Yeah. And wow, so we've went close to 3 hours. We've got about 20 more minutes.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the cannabis aspect. And I want to open this up a little bit because, you have a vested interest in your own well-being, and you have knowledge of a plant called the cannabis plant. What's your understanding of the plant? What do you know about it? What did you know about it when you were growing up? What did you hear about that plant when you were growing up?
I heard it was illegal to sell it.
Okay, so now we're going to open up a can of worms. It was illegal for me to sell it when I was a kid.
Yes.
Yes, it was. And I did it anyway.
It was against the law. You could potentially be imprisoned by selling it.
Yeah, if you got caught with enough of it, or enough times. Yeah, and there's people probably still in prison today, but the laws are changing rapidly, and that part of the reason is because we're starting to realize that we've been unfair towards ourselves as humans when it comes to this plant. And but at the time when you were growing up, what you heard was that you'll go to jail if you got it, if you sell it. Did you ever smoke it?
I did.
Yeah.
I did smoke it.
Did you have some hippie friends or something? Tell me.
Yeah, I had some hippie friends. It's part of that journey I was on of finding myself. But yeah, absolutely. I was introduced to it.
Socially.
Socially, yeah, socially, for sure. Yes.
Yeah. And so what's your idea? Well, now, since we've had a conversation, I think I may have been the first person to introduce you to the concept that it can be eaten
in
its raw form, juiced. And I know that you were rather surprised when I began to tell you about the story between Dr. William Courtney and his wife Kristen. And I was telling you about the science behind the endocannabinoid system, the ECS, and how it modulates your immune system. It actually supports homeostasis, which, for people who don't know what homeostasis is, that's basically like a state of perfection. So when I was telling you that, you were rather surprised. That was about a year and a half ago, right?
Yes, correct.
About a year.
About a year ago.
About a year ago. I was in Honduras and I had you on the phone. Why did we start talking about that? I think it was because your wife got sick, wasn't it?
Yes, it had to do with the health issues of my wife. Yes, Chris, that's right.
Yeah. And recently, well, I called you about a week and a half ago. I told you that I started a podcast. I told you about Dr. William Courtney is a co-host for the show that we have on Sundays. And we started off the conversation, but I asked you about how your wife's doing. And you told me that you had been through you gave me the breakdown since early this spring of how she's been, and her situation has become even more delicate, I guess I could say, in a respectful manner, correct?
Yeah.
And you haven't given her any type of cannabis products at the moment, but you said that you had purchased a couple. So
Yes.
that's where you're at with this story. What did you purchase, and tell me about those, because you mentioned two specific locations or ways that you had came about purchasing some hemp or cannabis product online to give to your wife. Where did you buy those? Well, you bought one online and one from the store down the street, right?
That's correct.
So tell me about the store down the street. What's the name of it, or can you give some information detail?
No, I don't remember too much about it. I bought that product earlier this year, but the second product was that online was one that Tom Hanks is promoting. He seemingly have his own company, and he's gotten into this because
Tom Hanks, the actor.
Yes,
one of our favorite actors in our culture is promoting cannabis.
Yes, he is.
As something to eat every day, including your diet.
Yes, he is.
And you bought a bottle, which is an oil tincture.
Yes.
To put a dropper under your tongue, essentially.
That's correct, Chris. Yes.
You bought two of those.
Yes. And I do see the change, even, one of the things I was really skeptical about was it talked about how it changes your mood. And it does. It absolutely changes your mood to a very positive, tranquil type mood. It seems like the anxiety.
Wait a minute. No, we're not talking about smoking. You took some oil and you put it in your mouth, so you've tried it.
Yes.
When was the first time you tried some of the oil?
Early this year.
You liked it. It was an enjoyable experience. You didn't feel you were stoned. You weren't.
No, and I do it. I'm doing it quite frequently now, Chris.
That's good. I called my grandmother up. I told you the story that I called my grandmother up earlier this year, and I said, "Grandma, I started eating cannabis in a hemp oil form every day." And she says, "Chris, I've been eating hemp oil now for 2 years, and your aunt is eating hemp oil, and she says she wouldn't live without it." And that's the grandma. That's the praying grandmother.
Yes. I noticed that you had received the FedEx package. Are you planning with the seeds? Are you going to grow? Are you planning to grow?
So let me tell you where I'm at with this.
All
Uh,
right.
because I know that there's an opportunity to help teach people by taking my time, right?
Yeah.
So I've been taking my time with getting started and how I'm going to get started, because one thing that's important is the fact that the I live in the United States, and inside the United States, there's still a certain number of people who would see it as an improper thing if I was to feed my children cannabis.
Yeah.
And I recognize that. And I understand there could be concern. And so, what I have done before I've even opened those packages, I have proactively reached out and told via email to state workers who are part of the department that takes care of families and children. Almost similar to what we have in the Midwest, we call them Child Protective Services. And uh, I told my grandma yesterday this. I had her on the phone. I said, Grandma, and would you believe it? They were really interested in coming over to visit me real quick to take a look and see how the kids were doing. And all I did was tell them that I've got some seeds, and I'm going to begin to do some tests. I'm going to sprout them. Hemp seeds, by the way. And there's a reason why I'm starting with hemp seeds, is because cannabis seeds, as far as on the THC level, the marijuana side goes, there's a little bit more restriction inside the state of Massachusetts where I live. The common understanding is not as developed. It's a harder envelope to push, I should say. There's a softer envelope to push, which is with an industrial hemp seed, because industrial hemp is the same thing that your oil is made out of.
Okay.
Your oil is not made from a strain that has a high concentration. There's a threshold that distinguishes between the classification, quote unquote, marijuana in the United States law and hemp, industrial hemp. And so there's a threshold of a certain molecule that's known as THC, delta 9 THC, if I understand the law correctly, which I'm not giving any legal advice, of course, for anybody. That's my disclaimer there. But from my interpretation of the law, the landing pad, so to speak, is a little bit softer for hemp sprouts as opposed to marijuana sprouts, even though it's the same plant. And the reason is because of the THC difference. And so, but the Dr. William Courtney and his wife, they were in Northern California discovering the fact that, there was the hippies that were in Northern California growing their own stuff and eating the plants raw, and been doing that for quite some time. And he attributes the work that he understands as, as they have done the heavy lifting. They did the heavy lifting, and so that's an important thing. So those hippies were growing the marijuana stuff, and so they were eating that. But I'm starting off with the industrial hemp sprouts. I have yet to open the package yet, because I'm openly inviting and I'm welcoming, in a way, the oversight, and or you can consider it criticism of any state worker or authority who's in within the community. So a Trojan horse move, so to speak, I suppose,
Mhm.
by preemptively, proactively communicating with them. But we will take the seeds. The plan is to take the seeds, sprout them, and send off for an analysis. The products that you purchase were sent to analysis. There's analysis and there's control that's within the industry when it comes to classifying the difference between industrial hemp and marijuana. And so we're going to take some of those and preemptively, we're going to do the best that we can. When I say we, Solomon's Treasure is investing in research and development. And the idea long term is to not only eat the sprouts or eat raw cannabis as a dietary essential, which is described by Dr. William Courtney. He views this as a dietary essential. It's an absolute must that should be included in everyone's diet, especially children. And I know that may sound controversial, but that's his position, and he's a professional to make that position. I'm simply helping relay the information for others to gain their understanding. But we will, the company that I own will begin sprouting those probably after our first visit, which I'm pretty sure now they're ever more interested in coming by. And there's some more details behind the backstory as to why, I have contact with that department. But nonetheless, I will be eating raw cannabis. I already eat the CBD oil that I've made from CBD flower, hemp oil, CBD oil, and I do not feed any yet to my children. And I believe that if it's true, then the truth is able to be seen, and it's able to be seen in a laboratory analysis. It's able to be seen in a clinical study. It's able to be seen in a scientific manner. And so when I say I'm taking my time, it's not just to help ease others into what I'm doing, but it's also to help document and create an authenticity and set up for establishing a new norm, but through scientific research, through proven analysis, the same way that you have also, done with your business. You've established a standard that did not exist. And so now there's plenty of people in the United States and around the world who are growing cannabis and can have access to eating it. And I suggest that they look into what we're doing, because if they have waste, they might not realize that their trash is actually their treasure. And same thing with your oil change. People don't realize that we don't need to throw the oil into the trash,
right?
And throw our money essentially into the trash, throw our time into the trash. We don't have to throw our health into the trash by continuing the stigmatisms that surround this plant, because we're past that. And so that was a mouthful to answer your question. But I think it gives a little bit of a context that shows where my heart is. I think for any people who are listening that understand the industry, I assume that you will see. I'm not an idiot. I'm not I may sometimes make foolish choices, but when it comes to understanding the benefits of this, I think it's quite clear for anybody that's also knowledgeable that they too can see that that this is not snake oil, and it's the real deal. Actually, as a matter of fact, I'm finding out through my relationship with the doctor and his wife that people in cultures around the world have been eating cannabis raw as a way to help cure their disease, heal their sicknesses. Particularly, I already knew that the Chinese were using it. I mean, it's viewed as a medicine in the pharmacopoeia, if I'm saying that correct. I know that some of my friends who might be watching this might think Chris, you've got some things to learn. Hey, send me an email if I misspell or missay something. But the Greeks, from what I understand, were also regularly, the Greeks were eating this plant as a vegetable, and it's been seen, not only it's been used in history, and we see in history that it's more than just something that you roll up in a joint and smoke, you know.
Yes.
And so my heart is to help provide the best for my children, and at the same time provide the best for everybody else, and leave no man behind, I suppose. But I know that when it comes to your business, not everybody's going to put one of those refiners on their car. Not everybody's well, you already know that. And, not everybody's going to buy it. Not everybody's comfortable with it, but I think that I consider it my mission and duty in life to speak about these things, because I can help prevent suffering with people in their life. And so we are building an online library archive of information surrounding the benefits that people have seen. We are inviting people to be on the show through this podcast. And for those of you who are watching this video sometime far out in the future, because I don't even know how many people are watching this right now, but I'll tell you what, I'm getting hardly nothing, but down the road, people are going to be able to take a look back and see that there was a growing process that was part of the story. And so that's why I'm taking my time. I'm taking my time because people are worth it. I believe that my extra effort with doing what I'm doing will have a better impact over the long term, as opposed to just the short term. Because I could take the stuff, I could just eat it and not tell anybody. I mean, there's lots of people who are already doing that, and there's people that aren't interested in pushing the envelope. And I want to push it, but I just want to push it just a little bit over to the edge, a little bit more, because that's where it's already going to go, with or without me. And the trend is going that direction. Cannabis is a vegetable. It's always been a vegetable. It's just been a vegetable that also has it has a history behind it. So that's left for discovery. And so, Ralph, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure, Chris. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed the conversation, the relationship, and to learn more about hemp as well, the cannabis oil, because it has certainly helped me thus far, and I'm really looking forward to the day I can have my wife start taking.
Well, I don't think there's anything necessarily stopping you from giving her. I know that I do not believe that there's any law that prevents you from giving her vitamins. I don't believe that there's any law that prevents you from giving her a CBD oil that you bought through something that Tom Hanks is doing.
Right.
I think that's a pretty simple thing to pitch, especially with the position where you're at on the committee to help people. And take them along also for that journey. And you know what we can do is we can even get really, we can get kind of, I guess, I don't want to say the word, let's just say the word passionate. We can get really passionate and very zealous about helping each other by inviting some of the members that are on that board to come and ask Dr. William Courtney on Sunday. And I would like to invite you to come on Sunday. We start Eastern Standard Time at noon. I know I've already mentioned to invite you. And maybe you can come on. I think you mentioned something around 12:30 your time, which would be 1:30 my time, because you're in the, you're in Louisiana. Louisiana.
Yes.
It's not Louisiana. It's
No.
Louisiana.
Louisiana.
You got to know how to say it.
Yes, you do.
So you're in Louisiana, and maybe we can bring some of them people, at minimum you, and as time goes on, have them come on and ask the doctor. And I
Yeah.
thought that would be the more appropriate way of helping educate others in the position you're at. Because I'm not a doctor. You're not. You're not a doctor. We just see that there's an opportunity to help others, and we'd like to make a connection. So, do you want to come on Sunday?
Yes, I'll get back with you, but tentatively, yes. The answer is yes. I just want to see what time the commitment is going to be over with, so I could be on 12:30 my time, which would be 1:30 your time. I
How
should be
about
I
if
should be
you?
able to do that.
Okay. So if it changes or if you need a little bit of flexibility, we have a 3-hour window, 2-hour window that we're working with. And there's
Okay.
one other person who we're also going to be bringing on. But I think what we'll do is we'll bring on individuals and we'll set up a time slot for you, maybe 30-minute time slot to come
Sure.
on if you want to prepare some questions. And if you want to do some preemptive study online, then I suggest you can go to his website at cannabisinternational.org, and there's lots of resources there.
Okay, gotcha.
And then you can also search for the phrase, I know we're going over the 3-hour, but the phrase endocannabinoid system. I think I gave you that word the other day.
Yes.
And those are two very important starting points for somebody who's looking to discover the science, proven science behind why this is the number one most important vegetable, dietary essential that should be in everybody's diet. So we'll be in
Sounds
touch.
good.
We'll be in touch through the intraweb,
Yeah.
our phones, and
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure having you on. I think you did an amazing job sharing your story, but it's a natural. You're a natural, and you have no fear for public speaking. You're quite comfortable with microphones, and so you did a really good job, and I'm super thrilled that we were able to have you on. Yeah.
It was my great pleasure, Chris. I look forward to continuing the relationship and interacting. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Same back at you. As I say in Spanish, igualmente.
What does it mean?
Igualmente means equivalently, but you could also say igual, which means equal, but people will say igualmente.
Okay.
It means kind of right back at you,
Okay, gotcha. Sounds good. Well, listen, have a great day and we'll talk again soon, huh?
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.